Good morning. This is my second video of the six that I said I'll be making, and the subject of the sixth video is listed on the screen. Now in this video I'll be talking about India-Pakistan war and how it is likely to play out. But before I do that, there are a couple of things that I need to put on the table, starting with a brief comment by a Chinese commentator called Dr. Victor Gao, who is close to the Chinese government. Please listen to his comment.
The Pakistani side and the Chinese side jointly produced the military planes, and the Pakistani side has the full benefit of all the military advances that China has made over the decades. So don't pretend to be surprised if China and Pakistan closely cooperate in defending the legitimate of Pakistan, in defending its sovereignty and territorial integrity. Now, you talked about terrorism. I personally condemn terrorism of all colors and shapes and forms. And we need to deal with the fundamental reasons for terrorism. But whenever there is a terrorist attack, you cannot just jump the gun and jump to the conclusion that accusing a certain other country as sponsoring the terrorist attack. Let's deal with the terrorist attacks as they are and get to the bottom of that by exhausting all investigation and inquiry before you will be justified to take military actions. From the Chinese perspective, taking military action is always a matter of last resort rather than a first resort. And I think it will be completely unjustified for India to jump the gun and to attack another country by claiming that that country is behind whatever terrorist attack.
Now, Victor Gao has made 2 points very clearly. One, that India jumped the gun in Operation Sindoor. It exercised the military option first without exploring the other options, and China is not happy about it. His second point is that while China-Pakistan relationship has existed for decades, now it is very much in the open, and China will support Pakistan's sovereignty at all cost. My two assessments based on what Gao has said are, which I wish to share, is that China has lost any hope, if it had, of having normal ties with India as long as the Modi government is in power. This is very obvious from the statement of Dr. Victor Gao. And the second thing what I want to say is that, hypothetically speaking, if in an India-Pakistan war, India raises the nuclear weapons alarm, China has the capability to take care of it, and it will do so. Now, I have said that after 5th August 2019, things changed between China and Pakistan. Their relationship in military terms, amongst other, became very intense. And I want to share two examples of that with the viewers. One is, within 3 weeks of 5th August 2019, the two sides, the air forces, they held Shaheen 8 exercise. Now, Shaheen series exercises, the two air forces, Pakistan Air Force and PLA Air Force, they've been doing since 2012. But this Shaheen 8 was distinctive. It was done in Xinjiang, and at the end of the exercise, the PLA commander, Shin, this is how he summed up the exercise. He said, Shaheen series jet exercises started as one-on-one dogfights. That is way back in 2012. But now it has evolved into systemic mock battle featuring more warplanes, multiple military branches, which include ground forces that deploy missiles and electronic countermeasures. So this was a complex exercise where three things were prominently done. One was the Pakistan Air Force new war concept, what they called multi-domain operation. The second was the use or the participation of Pakistan's integrated air and missile defense systems. And the third was that electronic warfare was central to this exercise. Now, within a year, the next exercise was done, which is Shaheen 9, This was done near Karachi in December 2020, and at the end of that exercise, the PLA commander said that starting last two exercises, referring to Shaheed 8 also, they exercised in highly contested environment where opposing sides were depicted to have excellent jamming capabilities to deny communications. In other words, the focus was on the capabilities in the virtual domain of war, which I have consistently maintained is where the war will be lost or it will be won. And these two instances are there in my book that I wrote in 2021, came out in 2022, where I have very clearly written the threat that India faces from Pakistan and how a likely war will play out, but not many people in my country read my book. That besides, the next point that I want to talk about is there is a bit of a controversy created about the relationship Asim Munir, the army chief, has with the air chief after Asim Munir has been elevated to the 5-star field marshal rank. I don't think there is any controversy. It's simple as that, in the sense that Field Marshal Asim Munir not only will decide issues of war and peace with India, as I said in my last video, he will be also responsible or the sole authority over the Strategic Plans Division, which is where Pakistan's nuclear capabilities and the entire nuclear infrastructure comes under. And because he's 5-star now, so any responsibilities that the 4-star Chairman Joint Chiefs of Staff might have had in this, in my assessment, no longer are there. And as far as the Air Force Chief is concerned, Air Chief Marshal Zahir Babbar Sidhu, he came into office in March 2021, got an extension. According to the press reports of Pakistan, he gave a good account in Operation Sindoor, and now it seems that both Field Marshal Asim Munir and the Air Chief Marshal Sidhu, they will be in office until 2027. Now the next point I want to talk about is, in my last video I mentioned that Sindoor has not ended in a ceasefire. It has been paused by Prime Minister Modi, and either side can lift the pause or end the pause. And the pause, once it is ended, that means the new normal, the next step is hot war. And I also said in my last video that given the total engagement between China and Pakistan, China will make sure, I mean, in any case, the two militaries would have had long discussions, briefings and debriefings about Operation Sindoor. So all that is required in the physical domain, all that is required in the virtual domains will be given the top line stuff, state of the art, by China to Pakistan, because in any case, Chinese are not happy with India at all. So in my assessment, whichever side may end the pause, we should be looking at the second half of 2026 and the first half of 2027, because both these officers are in office until 2027 as difficult period for the region. Now come to the subject of how a likely war, India-Pakistan war, will play out. We got a very clear glimpse of that in Operation Sindoor, that it will be in two parts. Part number one is, I was recently in Kashmir, where I was told that starting 6th May morning, the government websites, they were down, cyber attacks from Pakistan. And all the administrative websites of the government where the people would pay the bills, the electricity bill, the power bill or whatever, they all were down, and most of them are still down. And everything is being attributed to cyber attacks from Pakistan in Kashmir. Now you see, cyber attacks are non-attributable. Even the Chinese can do it from Pakistan. So what I want to put across is that this was a glimpse of what very little happened in Kashmir. In case of a hot war, we will see a lot of capabilities of the Chinese in cyber domain, cyber warfare, being attributed to Pakistan and being done in the whole of India. And why I say that is, a bit for the viewers to note. Now, you see, we know that it is the Americans who invented the internet, and the World Wide Web came into being in 1989. Starting next year, 1919, the Chinese were already thinking of how to put malware in cyberspace. Malware is the malicious software weapons, how to put them in space and how to destroy information. Because Chinese then only concluded that information in a war with America, which is their primary adversary, information will not be a sideshow, it will be the main line of effect. And information denial has always been their strategy. So we saw a lot of this happening, cyber attacks in India, which were attributed to China. And they intensified after April 2020, once the Chinese, the PLA, came to occupy our territory in East Ladakh. That is where we learnt of more attacks happening on our nuclear plants, then in the government offices, South Block, then power stations, then hospitals like All India Institute of Medical Sciences, and the most prominent was in October 2020 in Mumbai, where there was a major power outage for many hours and the train stopped and the Bombay Stock Exchange was closed down. And all this we later learnt, while the Modi government didn't say these were cyber attacks, but the New York Times reported that these were cyber attacks done by China. So the point to make is, what was the use of cyber attacks? I mean, they've been doing so many cyber attacks. It's very simple. This is called cyber reconnaissance. Every time you do an attack, like an attack, on the kinetic field, it's a different attack. You do attack, and after that you do the battle damage assessment. That means you see a target, how difficult it is. For example, the computers of the South Block, they will be very difficult to inject malware into them than perhaps the computers of All India Institute of Medical Sciences. So you do a damage assessment, battle damage assessment after the cyber attacks, wherever they are done, and based on that, then an assessment is made as to what sort of weapons are to be made, cyber weapons. Weapons are of two kinds: cyber force weapons and cyber value weapons. Counter force and counter value weapons. Counter force refers to the military domain, and counter value refers to all these civilian institutions like financial institutions, powerhouses, and other important buildings and areas where the computers are there. And Chinese have enormous capability in making all type of cyber weapons, because you basically need three things and they have an ample. What is required is nanotechnologies. Chinese have it, they are very good. And you need supercomputers, they have it. And you need a lot of talent, people who can write software weapons, and Chinese have it. So the point I'm making is that if you see Kashmir, what you will see is, in a bigger sense, all across India, we will find that the attacks, cyber attacks, which I would call at that stage something like a cyber operations campaign being done by Pakistan, attributed to Pakistan, but may have been initiated by China to help Pakistan. So that is one part of the Indo-Pakistan war that we should be looking at. And the second is, in the battlefield or the battle space, what will happen. Now, I don't know what will be the political objectives and the war aims of Pakistan, because they both will be decided by Field Marshal Asim Munir. But what is very clear is that the Pakistan military campaign will be led by their Air Force. Air Force will lead the campaign, fully supported by China. The Air Force and the Pakistan military will have total transparency of the battle space, something which will not be available to the Indian side. So nothing about the Indian side, their command and control structures, command and control centers, or their communication centers, nothing will be hidden because of the Chinese satellites which will be available to the Pakistan side. Now, because they've been exercising so much, so the Pakistan Air Force, what we will see is they doing a high intensity campaign with the simple aim of having air superiority, if not dominance, of the sky. And for that, what we'll see is their missiles and their fighters in the game. And if there is a requirement for the air corridor coordination, that they would do, and they would have a lot of expertise because they have done a lot of exercises in this area. Next, drones. As far as drones are concerned, which we saw a lot in the new normal, will actually be a sideshow as far as the high intensity campaign is concerned, where I said the focus will be the missiles and the fighters. Next, the army, the Pakistan army, will be in the follow-on phase. That means once the air superiority, I'm assuming, is created by the Pakistan Air Force, then the Pakistan army will move forward. And when I look at the entire geography, what looks to me, and I have mentioned in my book also and other things also, that Siachen seems to be most vulnerable to me in case of an India-Pakistan war. Other things also there. But why I say about Siachen is because Siachen is sandwiched. On one side you have the People's Liberation Army now, because they are coming and sitting there. On the other side you have the Pakistan army sitting there. It's completely sandwiched. And if the viewers recall, the PLA was very reluctant to give concessions in disengagement at Demchok and Depsang to India. And that is the reason for that, because it's very close to the Siachen. And in any case, given their posts in the north, the Chinese posts, they will have total visibility of the entire glacier. See, I don't know how the Pakistanis will formulate their campaign in consultation with China. Please keep in mind that whatever Pakistan will do will have total blessing and coordination with the Chinese. But what I can say with certainty is that this is a war that should be avoided. And that can only happen if the Modi government does a major review to see as to how we can have peace, and peace is possible in South Asia, and peace is what we need, because a war will set back the region many decades and both countries are poor. Much.